I'm very pleased to say that connected via Zoom is the one and only Damon Albarn. Hello, Damon. Good to see you.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah.
So, and where are you? I can peer into a room and there's loads of books. And
I'm in my studio.
Right, excellent. Where this record was recorded, presumably?
Well, it was until March. And then obviously, with the prospect of everything closing down and not being able to actually work, I just went down to Devon for 5 months, as you do.
Yeah. So you were based down there.
Just continued working down there, really.
Fair enough. So, I mean, I've got to talk about Robert Smith to start with, because that song is so great, and Robert's voice sounds so amazing. Was he somebody easy to persuade to join a Gorillaz song?
I mean, it was. I think with anyone, it's really dependent on whether they like the music, you know. And in his case, it was very much a sketch. It was just like a sort of mad piano part, very straightforward drum pattern, and my niece playing trumpet. That was all it was. But he was really into it, and you know, to be honest with you, he came up with everything himself. It was great. It arrived one morning at 5 a.m. in my inbox, and it was Strange Times.
Yeah, amazing. I just think he sounds so great. I mean, the bits where it breaks down and you just hear his voice really highlights just how fantastic his voice is, I think.
I couldn't believe it. The previous night, I'd had a bit too much to drink, and I'd fallen over and hit my head on the side of the barn. So I woke up with a massive bump on my head, but feeling quite sort of clear-headed, bizarrely. And there it was. And I sort of put some headphones on, and there was this voice coming, sort of like it sort of time traveled from about 1981 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds amazing. And so, you were in Devon when you got the track.
It's amazing. It is actually amazing how exactly like his voice used to sound, it sounds now.
Yeah,
my voice has changed dramatically, really, in 30 years, but his hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. So
I'm still rubbish.
So you were in Devon. So this, I mean, Strange Times, it seems to chime with the times so well. I mean, do you think it was a response to that?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have a title for Song Machine Season 1.
Yeah.
And it just sort of made sense, really. And yeah, I mean, could have called it lots of other things, but that one was actually, for once, I wasn't being that obtuse.
No.
It's quite literal, actually.
Yeah. But the song was actually written during the lockdown period then?
Yeah.
And how much of the rest of the album was done in that way?
I've just noticed, look at this, I've got my own Blur teacup.
A Blur teacup. That's a pretty early on picture, isn't it? That's the hippopotamus from the first album.
Yeah.
One of the first album's artworks. Am I right thinking that? I don't know.
You are right.
Yeah.
That was actually, that hippopotamus was on the first ever single.
On the first single, right.
So high.
Excellent. So you got Britannia sitting across a hippopotamus. So Damon's having a sip of tea. So, how much of the album was written during this kind of period we've been living through?
Well, everything from this episode with Strange Times onwards to the rest of the record was all written down there.
Yeah, amazing.
We've not obviously no one else to actually physically work with.
Yeah. So having to do it all yourself.
Oh well, no. I actually managed to convince my engineer to come down in March, and so he lived in the house with I had 3 families in all living, it was hard work, really, because I mean it's very nice, and me personally, I enjoyed having family around, you know, and actually staying in one spot for such a long time. But there was a lot of cooking and a lot of washing up to do.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of it.
When you assemble a Gorillaz album with lots of different guest vocalists and different people get involved,
Yeah.
how does it happen? I mean, is it really happen chance, or do you have a plan?
No, it's very fluid and quite random, really. It's sort of conversations. I mean, we in here we started season 2 yesterday, and sort of halfway through and I'm saying we as Remy Kabaka, who's worked on this record with me. We turned around and we both almost at the same time mentioned somebody, and that's kind of how it happens. You know, it's not a plan, but it's a sort of by osmosis. We come to these kind of, you know, these people.
Yeah.
And then you go on. Every time it's a very different journey. I mean, you know, some people I knew Elton John, I knew Beck, so that's easier way to sort of start the conversation. And I knew Robert very. Actually, I didn't know Robert. That's rubbish. There's no way he remembers meeting me in a urinal at Brixton Academy in 1990. But anyway, I do now. I know him now. But
yeah.
So that's always interesting. Is kind of getting to people. How do you connect with them?
Yeah.
You know, and start the conversation, and then the music starts sort of being shared, and then, you know, it eventually, fingers crossed, turns into something weird and wonderful.
Yeah, and when you
and then there's times when people are absolutely quite categorically not interested in working. And that's fair enough.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm going to play a load of songs while I've got you here, and I'm kind of choosing the ones I'm most excited and interested by. And
okay.
At the moment, it seems as if I'm kind of running in the order of the album, because I was going to play The Lost Chord featuring Lee John next, which is one of my favourites. Just because Lee is a kind of figure from possibly our childhoods, Damon, you know, with Imagination, when they were on Top of the Pops, and they were a massive sensation at the time. And he was an extraordinary... He
appeared. He was rolled out of a carpet onto the Pops.
He was, yeah. And wearing kind of leather thongs, or
you see. This is something that I think is quite important about our kind of teenage years. Is that we literally only had one program where we could watch pop music. And that was Top of the Pops, and it didn't even have the option to record it and look at it again. You had to, right back in the day, you had to be there at 7 o'clock on a Thursday, otherwise you missed it. Which, if you think, is so mad now. Imagine the idea that, I mean, it's kind of, I can't believe anyone actually managed to do anything really.
Yeah.
But it was so special to us. And we remember all those Top of the Pops.
Totally.
I don't remember a lot of the other television, but I remember Top of the Pops kind of vividly. And Imagination were one of those moments for me where I was like, my God, what's that? I love it.
Yeah, it's true. You'd be faced with something that you wouldn't know anything about necessarily, and think, wow, you know, what planet is that from?
Yeah.
And sadly, Imagination had an amazing success, and then they seem to disappear from view. But Lee is back in the fray now. I mean, he's been around for a few years now, kind of singing and performing.
I think he's always been busy, and he's always been really big in France and Italy and Benelux countries.
Yeah, but he's amazing. This track is great. I mean, how did this one come about? Again, just an email with an MP3 attached. Is that the?
He actually lives up the road, so that was great. He came down, and you know, we got on famously.
Right, excellent. Yeah, it certainly sounds.
And I'm really looking forward to performing with him. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. So will he be part of these shows that you've got lined up in December, the live streaming things?
Well, I mean, you know, who knows if we actually will be able to do them. If we are, then I think he'd definitely be part of it. But I mean, we're going to try and do something. Genuinely try and do something that hasn't been done before, because I think the live stream works, but you can't just kind of just stick a band on a stage and then film it with no audience. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be much more immersive, and really, there's no excuse for us not to be like that, because we do have a parallel universe. So we're going to really make it more like a TV show, you know, like a Gorillaz TV special, and that means that the cartoons will be everywhere.
Yeah,
which should look amazing.
And does that?
I'm excited about it. I mean, obviously, I would rather be playing live. Who wouldn't? But in the absence of that, I think you've got to do something. But keep culture sort of, you know, alive. I mean, it does feel like that sometimes. It feels like there's just been a terrible mismanagement of the arts recently, and some quite sort of nonsensical and, you know, bordering on callous kind of initiatives that, you know, just don't try and deter people from having dreams. And, you know, it's really, it's counterproductive as well. And it's, you know, ultimately, if they want people to work in cyber, they need content for that, whatever that cyber is.
Yeah, totally. And so, talking of content, so with these live streams, or with these live streaming shows, you'll have the cartoons, and will you have all the guests? I mean, will they beam in from wherever they are?
Yeah, kind of. Well, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but, you know, beam me up Schoolboy Q kind of thing.
Right. Excellent. And hopefully we'll see Lee John as part of that.
Yeah. I think he will actually be on the deck of the Starship Gorillas or whatever it is.
Yeah. So when you're writing a song, and do you think that the guest artist pops into your head because the song reminds you of something? So say when you were writing Aries, did you think, oh, this sounds like New Order, maybe I should talk to Peter Hook? Does it work? Is it that simple?
I mean, I definitely started playing that bass line, and it's like, hang on, this is a Peter Hook bass line. What am I doing? So I rang him up and said, can you play this bass line? And he was like, sure.
Wow.
It was like that. I mean, you know, I think that happens sometimes. When I get on an instrument, I sort of, you know, I can't really play any instrument well, but I can play most instruments sort of enough. And I kind of sometimes go into these worlds and, you know, fantasize that I'm Peter Hook in New Order or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
But this is the great scope of Gorillaz, isn't it? I mean, it's such a brilliant project for that. You can kind of go in any direction you like.
Do whatever I want, and even more so now because we treat it like episodes. As I say, we started season 2 yesterday, and so I used this new thing that I've got.
So Damon's moved his
a Maestro box, which is like a really shrill early 1960s kind of mono organ, and then I've just had my old Moo fix, so I did use that, and started like that. Who knows what it will sound like, but it certainly won't sound like anything that's on this season.
Yeah. And when do you think you'll start the new season then?
Well, I've started it.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of sharing it with people.
Well, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but I'm reckoning March.
Right. Okay, that's quite soon.
I mean, the thing is, I think this year sort of has driven Jamie, you know, slightly to the edge of a nervous breakdown in the amount of animation he's had to do.
Right.
But he did say to me, I said, when because he finishes in November, I said, how long do you need off before you start again? And he said a month. So I took that literally and started. So I will be delivering him episode 1 in January.
Right. Excellent. So you're getting the music together, then you send it to him, and then you wait for him to kind of visualize that. Is that how you operate?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's hard at the moment because he lives in Paris, so it's quite hard. I mean, although I was over there doing this opera at the Châtelet recently, but it's hard for him to come over here, especially at the moment. But so yeah, it does work like that.
Yeah, interesting. And so I was going to play Dead Butterflies next because there's a little section near the beginning where you say, "Can we just loop that last piano bit?" And I think it's like a little window into your way of working, possibly. And
well,
you
that actually, that little bit was a result of a day in Mike Will made its studio in Atlanta. And I didn't really think that we got anything or anything has sort of been achieved, other than I felt sick when I went back to my hotel because of the sheer volume of the bass that they play their stuff at. I mean, it's like I like loud music, but this literally kind of shook my whole being, and I was like, I was like shivering in bed. I'm feeling really, really odd. I felt fine the next morning, but I'm sure it's to do with the bass frequencies. Anyway, so that was that, and then during lockdown, he sent that little snippet over to me and said, "Look, I found this. It's really great. We should work on it more," and that's what we did.
Right, wow. And so that song emerged from that. And you mentioned Remy Kabaka, who you work with, and now he's like an official member of the Gorillaz, has been for a few years now, isn't he?
Oh, he's a producer.
Yeah.
He's been producing since The Humans. He's been kind of helping me produce it all. Yeah, and he's always been the voice of Russell, and he kind of works on our fashion thing.
Right.
Not that I don't really have anything to do with that, as you can see, particularly.
But there's
although I do now have a mullet.
Yeah, I just noticing that. So mullet. Is that it's very purposeful then. You've got to shave the sides, so you've got it longer at the back.
Yeah, is he able to give me one himself? Tomorrow. Oh, okay. I'm going to get it whatever the process is when you're having a mullet. Right.
It's going to get reshaped or sharpened up. Or
it happened in France. I hadn't had my hair cut I had beard out here and hair out here, and because I was doing this thing in the Châtelet Theatre, everyone said, "I think you should get your hair cut, Damon." So I sat down looking like Wurzel Gummidge, and came out looking like, I don't know, Pat Sharp.
Well, you wear it well. It's looking good, I think. You haven't had a mullet before, I don't think.
No. It's. I mean, you could say it's a bit of a midlife crisis.
So, on Dead Butterflies, we've got Kano, but we've also got this Roxane Arias. Is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about her. She is absolutely amazing. And is that verse in Spanish? That is she singing in Spanish? I mean, she just kills it on this track. I think.
Yeah. Well, she's from Atlanta as well, so that came through Mike.
Right. She's amazing. I think she's a real star. I mean, you often do that. You seem to pick out people. Like you often get some really incredible names involved, but then there's always these new talents.
Yeah, but it's I see everyone as equally kind of sort of interesting. It's I think it's important to work with a huge variety of people. I learn much more by doing that, and it's not important to me how popular someone is. It's kind of do we share a kindred spirit? And I think that's how I've always felt. When I suppose like doing Africa Express as well, I work with so many people. I'm probably addicted to it now, just collaborating.
Yeah. because you get to meet all these different talents. They all
Yeah,
bring
well,
something.
it's that's the joy of being a musician, is being able to play and out of nothing form a friendship through your musical conversation.
Hmm.
It's a really positive thing, I think.
Oh, totally. It is Gorillas on Exposure Radio X. It's Momentary Bliss featuring Slow Tie and Slaves. I'm John Kennedy. With me via Zoom is Damon Albarn, telling us a bit about the album. That was the first track you put out. This was the first episode of season 1. And that was kind of right at the beginning of the year, was it? Is it around that time?
Yeah, we recorded that around this time last year.
Right.
And I mean, that's a perfect example of Slaves and Slow Tie. Both, completely relate to them, and I mean, even though they're a lot younger than me, especially Slow Tie, I still feel like kindred in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I always think it's interesting the different people you assemble, because they seem to represent different sides of you, your personality, your interests. So you might have Slow Tie and Slaves there, but then you'll have Jonas Policewoman, or you'll have Roxani or Lee John. It's almost as if
Elton John.
Oh, and Elton John too. Yeah, this is it. You get to live out your fantasies, but also tap into different things. I mean, I could easily see.
Well, working with Lee John was definitely a teenage fantasy, no doubt about that.
Fantastic. I love that idea. And I mean, it's interesting you mentioned Africa Express, because it does seem as if, that has operated in a certain way for you, allowing you to explore so many different things and meet so many different kinds of musicians. But also, I think in some ways it's allowed you to introduce younger musicians to places and worlds and people that they would never have encountered, because one of the things that you've always done is invite British musicians, emerging British musicians, along to some of these explorative trips that you go on, and these are life-changing experiences that you kind of help create for people.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it seems like did all of that really happen? What I mean? Like, it doesn't seem possible to kind of get a plane full of people and fly to the Congo. I just doesn't seem like. If you said that, hey guys, let's go to the Congo tomorrow, everyone would just go, "You're mad."
Yeah.
So, sometimes I do think, wow. I mean, in the future, I'd still love to be able to do that kind of thing, because I think, as you say, it's such a positive experience for everyone.
Yeah, totally. I've got to let you go, but I'm going to play one more song. And I wanted to play How Far. So on the album, there's like an 11-track version of the album, and there's a 17-track version of the album.
Yeah.
And it's so rich, the whole thing. The extra tracks, all of them could have easily fitted on the shorter version. They're all, outstanding. But it seemed important to play How Far, featuring Tony Allen and Skepta, because we've lost Tony, and Tony was such an important part of your life for the last how many years? How long ago did you meet Tony Allen?
I met him in 2000, so 20 years.
Wow.
I mean, one of my, I was just so honoured and fortunate to have him as a friend, and as a teacher. I mean, God, he taught me a lot about life.
Yeah, amazing. And it's
it was an awful shock, awful. It really knocked me. So yeah, I'm still very sad about it, but I was kind of 8 months later now. It's 6 months later. Sort of, I at least can talk about it without being reduced to tears. But it does. I still. I mean, this time last year last summer, not this summer, last summer, we were touring around playing with the Goods Band and the Queen. It's mad.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you really have to embrace every moment, because I just didn't believe that he just seemed so well and strong. He was like, he had no sense of him being 79, really.
Yeah.
So it was, but he went very quickly, which I think is always a blessing in a way.
Yeah, but a surprise to everybody around him.
Well, just a total shock. No, I mean, it's like, I spoke to him on Zoom like about 4 days earlier, and we were having a laugh and a joke. So it just goes to show.
Yeah, and with how long ago had you recorded that bit?
Well, that was literally the last thing we did in this studio before lockdown.
Right. And did Skepta come to you then?
Yeah.
And this was like a live session then, was it? With the people playing together in a room?
Yeah, well, I've done quite a lot of recording with Skepta, actually. So.
He's amazing on this track as well. It's got some really great lines on it. No, really interesting things that he's pointing out. And I mean, do you have? Because I'm thinking, over 20 years of knowing and working with Tony Allen, that you probably have hundreds of tapes of you interacting and playing and stuff. I mean, would you be inspired, or would you want to use some of that as a kind of way of extending his work?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of stuff that we didn't use when we did Rocket Juice and the Moon, including a ballad duet with Erykah Badu, which was sung at about 4 a.m, and I'm so out of tune. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's like you couldn't sing it that badly if you tried. Do you know what I mean? It's like she's singing beautifully, and I'm just can't seem to get it together. It's very funny. It's a funny tape.
Maybe you could redo that vocal, and then everybody else could hear it.
Well, no, I don't know. I think it's kind of wonderful the way it is. It just needs one of those warning stickers.
Well, instead of saying
dangerously out of tune.
So not explicit content.
I suppose I could run it through auto-tune and it'd be fine.
Yeah. Excellent. So good to speak to you about Gorillaz. You know what, Damon? We've talked to each other many times over various projects that you've been involved in, but I've never talked to you about Gorillaz before because most of the time when the opportunity arose, I was offered a conversation with a cartoon character or an actor, and I just couldn't do it.
No, well, fair enough. I mean, when we started, our very first interview was for Rolling Stone in America, and we were all on the phone. Jamie was Murdoch, Remy was Russell, and I was 2D, and I even had a voice for him and everything. And we got about 3 questions in, and I just said, I can't do this. Look, I can't pretend. I just, and Jamie was very annoyed because I kind of, I ruined it right at the beginning. I mean, we managed to keep it relatively anonymous, but when I look at like how well Banks has done, to keep himself anonymous, I feel like that was our idea at the same time, but yeah, we failed miserably. Yeah,
pretty tricky, I think.
I think you've got to dedicate a lot of energy to it. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, I'm not that bothered whether people know it's me or not,
Yeah. Because in a way, it's much better that we know.
And in America, to be honest with you, in America, people have no idea who makes Gorillaz. So it does actually work. I mean, they honestly don't know who does it. So, which is how it should be, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think now, so many albums in, we know some of the participants, but we just listen to the music as the music, I think.
Yeah, and for me, it's just a wonderful vehicle, Gorillaz, and especially now that we've kind of established this episodic thing, I can just do it when I want to do it. Because making pop music at my age, it's got to be something you really want to do. Otherwise, why would you bother? You know what I mean? I'm a bit of an imposter in another world now. Really, I feel like I'm sort of, the pasture awaits.
I don't know about that. It seems to me that when you say, the album's Song Machine, and it seems that you are a bit of a song machine, Damon, because you cannot stop. You just keep going. You keep coming up with things and keep working on things, as Damon manically puts his fingers on the keyboard to play some more music. But it is like that. I mean, you are a kind of song machine, and there's all, that's why you have to have all these different things going on, because you cannot stop. That's the impression I have.
Yeah, well, I just, well, I mean, I've got to do something. You know what I mean? It's like I've got to have a job. So that's my job.
Yeah, fair enough. It's working out. Don't give up.
Thank you.
It's doing quite well. So good to speak to you.
Nice to speak to you, John.
I'm going to play How Far Now, featuring Tony Allen and Skepta, and we look forward to these live streaming events. Everything going.
I really, really recommend people watching, because I think we're going to attempt to do something I don't think has ever been done before.
Excellent. Well,
which means it could be a right cock up. But, hey, you could watch us cocking up, which is funny as well.
Yeah, totally. Thanks a lot, Damon.
Radio X.